that's where all journeys begin. And so we spoke about this last week in depth. If anyone wants the recording, you are welcome to find me, message me, or you can message the Lighthouse, and I'm sure they'll be happy to send it out. What I want to do with you guys now is to get more into the details of it, just the different categories of our life that need this deep cleaning or need this decluttering, right? And let's just be clear. I got the disclaimer, okay, no, Passover cleaning is not about decluttering your house. It's not spring cleaning. Okay, I had to say that, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, in halacha, in Jewish law, it means we're searching specifically for chametz, for leavened bread, for pieces of it or whatever, right? And anything that's like it. Fine. Okay, we said it. But now also, in terms of our own lives, dealing with the chametz of our lives, so to speak, right? Dealing with that which is getting in the way. Oh, there you go. There's the link to last week. So right now, what we're talking about is, okay, how can I go ahead and take a look at my own life and say, okay, what is holding me back? What am I a slave to? What has been holding me back from being the person I want to be, from being that husband I want to be, the wife I want to be, the person at work, standing on my own 2 feet, acting with assertiveness, acting with confidence, being, what are those things that are holding me back? So we have all sorts of different clutters in our life and all sorts of different things that are holding us back. And so I want to go through a few of them with you now. And I would really love if anybody has any thoughts, questions, ideas along the way, please don't hesitate to throw them in. It will definitely be helpful. If you don't throw them in, then we're going to go through this real quick. And then, it'll be like, all right, 5 minutes, sayonara. Okay. So I think we can start first and foremost with our mind, right? With our mind. That our mind has, for many of us, our mind has all sorts of clutter, all sorts of patterns, what we will go to, what we will go back to, right? Some of us, we're fighting debates in our mind all the time, right? About other people, preparing for debates we're going to have with other people. Let me just clarify, get the camera clear, then I'll, okay. So, we have all sorts of different negative ways we interpret what people say. Are we looking for the bad? Are we looking for the good, right? Famous Rav, what's his name? Hold on a second. The founder of the Musar movement, Rav Salanter? I think it's Rav Salanter who said this. Okay, he said like this. He did a little thing right here. Ready? I'm gonna do it with you guys right now. It's a little exercise. Okay, you guys, what do you see? What do you see? You can all put it in the chat there. What do you see? Ah, there you go. Sure, is that all you see? Now you might know it already. Anyway, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a dot on this piece of paper. Okay, so a lot of people will say, I see the dot. And so Slanta will say, well, why don't you say a white piece of paper? It's 99% white piece of paper. You have to focus in on the one black dot, right? So this is, this is the story with a lot of us, right? We have certain negative patterns that we find ourselves in, judgmental patterns that we find ourselves in, whether we're judging others or whether we're judging ourselves in a negative way. We got this self-loathing thing going on. We got the comparison thing going on. And so there's a lot of stuff, right, that's going on within us. And there's a part of us that doesn't want to let it go, by the way. There's a part of us that doesn't want to let it go. And that, Kabbalistically, we could say that is the Amalek within you. Amalek famously is the one who's basically out for our self, the side of us that's out for our self-destruction, right? And what is that? Because the number one primary base drive that we all have is the drive for familiarity, right? As a rabbi of mine likes to say that over a lot. Right. But what does that do to us? Right. And I think we've said this before. I don't remember if we said it last week, but I think we might have said this before, that a lot of people think the issue with change is that it's the fear of the unknown. But I think it's a better conception of it is it's really not a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of the death of the known, right? That if I go ahead and actually make a change in my mentality, so there's a certain loss of control in that. There's a certain loss of self in that, because there's a certain death of self in that, because wherever you're at right now, it means that won't exist anymore. So there's the lower side of you feels like it's holding on and fighting for survival, right? It's like imagine if you know someone who's maybe in pain, some level of pain or what have you, and they're involved with alcohol. Let's use alcohol as an example. So imagine this guy, he can't get past the alcohol, and like everyone around him is like, dude, just put down the freaking bottle, and there's a whole new life on the other side of that bottle. If you just put down the bottle, it's going to be, you're just like, this thing's been stopping you and it's been holding you back, and it keeps you get a job, then you lose it because of different things that are the effects of having alcohol in your life too much, right? If you would just put down the bottle, wow, in terms of family life, in terms of career, in terms of just all sorts of things opening up to you, it's got a whole new life, man. And this guy, he's like, yeah, I'm listening. He's listening. He's eating it up. He's hearing it. But then when push comes to shove, eventually he's just like holding on to the bottle for dear life, which is wild, because the whole idea is that you have a whole new life on the other side of that bottle. But for him, you have to understand that guy is holding on for dear life, because if he gives up that bottle, that is a death of who he is in that moment, right? And so the lower side of that person, what's called the nefesh in Kabbalah, the lower aspect of that person that's there for that's just looking to survive, can't imagine making such a radical change. It means the end of who they are. It means their disappearance, in a sense. Who they are will no longer be. Who they are in that moment will no longer be if you go ahead and make that change. And so often that is what's holding us back from moving forward, right? And so of course there's all sorts of strategies in order to go ahead and to deal with that, right? But this is the, and we have to take it on one thing at a time, and little by little. Okay, that's usually the path, not always, but usually that's the path. And so what that means is also with all of our issues to recognize that, like, hold on a second, if I want to go ahead and make a change, if I want to be a new person, if I want to go ahead and declutter my mind, right? It means recognizing these patterns, recognizing these characteristics, right? Because that's what happens. At first we do some things enough times, it becomes a pattern, and then from there it becomes a characteristic, and then from there, if we keep with it, it becomes our personality, right? And so to be able to deconstruct that and to be able to catch ourselves in those moments, not being the person that we want to be, right? Not thinking the way we want to think. Catch ourselves and be like, hold on a second, am I going to an extreme way of thinking, right? Am I being over the top? Is this serving me anyway, right? Wouldn't I be better off if I take a different path, right? In terms of my neural pathways, in terms of how I'm thinking, right? And so this is when we go ahead and we do, when we go ahead and we start getting conscious of these things, we can catch ourselves, right? If we want to get even deeper, we could say, okay, where does it come from that I even have these thoughts? Where does it come from that this is where my mind goes to? Because there's another guy over there, his mind doesn't go there, right? So why does my mind go to this place? And so we can come up with things. There are ways to do that. It's a longer therapeutic class, perhaps, thinking about going back to childhood and where we start to feel, we had this feeling before and all that kind of jazz. We're not going to do all that stuff now. But point is, though, this is the beginning of, again, cleaning out ourselves. That deep clean, that deep cluttering of Passover, okay? So that is the first thing. And so really the tikkun, the rectification to all of this, at first is to replace our extreme irrational thoughts when we go way over the top, right? When we start saying, oh, he always, or she always, he never, she never, right? Always and never, right? Usually doesn't do us any good, right? And we go to something that's a little bit more rational. right? Which usually means staying in the moment and not attaching it to some bigger extreme, not attaching it and making it, oh, it's the principle of the matter, right? Usually the principle of the matter causes you problems. Just have to say that. Usually the principle of standing up for the principle of the matter usually causes problems. It usually doesn't deal with the issue at hand practically, because oftentimes the issue at hand isn't really about the principle of the matter, right? Many of us have grown up, especially those of us who've grown up with a more of a black and white kind of way of thinking, whether that's a mentality from culture, from family, or what have you, is irrelevant. But to the extent we grew up with that, we are very big on the principle of the matter. But the truth is, life is much more colorful than the black and white reality of the principle of the matter, right? Life is much more colorful, and usually it's just about other people being flawed human beings, right? And also you, or if you're judging yourself, it's about you being a flawed human, and that's okay, right? And it's not about any principle of the matter. It's not about some grand judgment. It's just that people will be people. They just are. Don't expect so much. Don't expect so much, right? And so it means to get a little bit more rational, right? They're probably not just trying to get you. They're probably just not perfect. That's all it is. That's all it is. All right. So anyway, there's all sorts of different things we can deal with when it comes to all this stuff. Not going to go into all of it now, but the point is that if we want to deep clean, if we want to declutter our life, that begins with the mind. Question, thoughts, ideas on that before we go on? Oh, I got a bunch of chats here. Anything new? Nope, nothing new here. Questions, thoughts, ideas, any chatters before we go on? Can you give an example of what, Rebecca? I thought I gave a few examples there, so maybe I'm missing what you're saying. Can I give an example of? Don't know. Okay, here we go. Like self-love regarding not judging ourselves. Okay. Okay, so let's say a person is, let's say you messed up. Let's say you wanted to wake up in the morning by a particular time and you didn't make it, right? You wanted to wake up at 7. You even set the alarm, this, that, whatever, didn't make it, right? So you can take that moment that you didn't reach your goal and attach it to every other time in your life where you, quote, let yourself down or someone else down, and you can judge yourself extremely harshly for that. And then the question then becomes, maybe it's just like, okay, you didn't have a perfect evening this evening or last night or whatever. Maybe you're extra tired that particular day, or maybe just like, hey, you're trying something new, so it didn't go today. Like when you take the thing and keep it to being in the moment, it's usually much more helpful to go ahead and be like give yourself a little bit of empathy, give yourself a little bit of understanding. And even if there is no real reason, right, you can just be like, okay, it's okay. And then like, I did the best I could in the moment. And even if you feel like I could have done better, well, then why didn't you do better, right? So probably in that moment, that's where you were at. That's where you were at, right? And so then you move forward from there. Hold on a second. Another question came in. I just have to check it out. Hold on. Someone else, but let's say there's some truth to others being out to get you. Look, if there are people who are out to get you, people are being. Someone asked a question about spiteful people. If there are people who are spiteful and out to get you, then okay, you have to deal with that situation. But you can also deal with that situation without getting all overcome with the whole "how could they," that whole thing. You know what I mean? Like you just deal with the moment, you deal with the issue in the moment. Do you understand what I'm saying? So like, you know, it's like I tell this to mothers all the time who are struggling with their kids. When I do class on parenting and stuff like this. Okay, so Juan says everything comes from Hashem. All right, we can go that path. We go the whole Emunah path, and it's all from God. It's all for the best, etc., etc. That for sure we can go to. Oftentimes, not what I'm dealing with is a notch down from there, right? Just dealing with the situation in the moment, dealing with our emotions more than dealing with our. I know we're dealing with the head, but right now I'm dealing with like, okay, the reality of our emotional responses, right? And so anyway, the whole how could they thing, right? Like parents are like all about that with their kids a lot of the time. And it's just like, yo, they could. It's it is what it is. Now just deal with what is the only thing, the response or the way to deal with that situation in a healthy way for you, for yourself, is to be like, okay, what does Hashem want me to do in this moment? What is the best, most productive and useful thing for me to do in this moment? Because that's all there is. Meaning to say, very quickly, accepting the reality as it is without anything that's just accepting it as it is and saying, okay, what is the most positive and productive thing for me to do from the reality of this space? You see how that's so much different than all the other reactions are you fighting against the reality of the moment. How could they? And you're like resisting it, like it's not supposed to be this way. It's you versus the reality. You're always going to lose that. And then you feel depleted, and then you feel overwhelmed. And then you feel pissed off, then you feel resentful. Whereas the alternative is like, okay, this is where this person is at. Why are they like this? I don't know why they're like this, but apparently they're like this. But they should be different. Apparently they shouldn't, or else they would be. Not just from an emunah standpoint, just from a reality, what's in front of your face standpoint. They had free will to do other things. Firstly, I don't know if they did. I don't know if they had free will to do other things. I don't know what their real choices are. And also their free will is between them and God. All I have is what's in front of my face. That's all I know. All right. And so the person, this is the reality. The person is in the situation. They're being spiteful. They're attacking you. They're trying, whatever, causing. Okay. So you expand yourself by just saying the reality is what it is and accepting the reality and saying, okay, so now once I accept that reality, it's like, okay, so now what's the most proactive thing and productive thing for me to do in this space, in the reality of the space that I'm in this reality of the situation that I'm in? And then we move forward from there, right? That mind switch is a big switch, because then immediately you could go from there to proactiveness, as opposed to if you're standing in resistance the entire time. It's very hard to be proactive and like make a good decision about what to do if I'm holding this place of anger and rage and frustration and overwhelm and resentment and fighting this moment, fighting the reality. And if I am making decisions in that place, it's probably not going to be the best, probably not going to work out the best, right? Talmud, if it's the Talmud or the Zohar or something, says that people who are angry could get to the point where they destroy their own stuff, where they take their own stuff and throw it in the fire, right? And it's true. There's an aspect of that. There's an aspect of that. That's where a person can go, right? Take something that's an issue and then make it a much bigger issue. Why? Because the principle of the matter. Things should be different. I shouldn't be treated this way. How could they do this after I did that, right? And people take this to such an extreme, to the point that it's like at weddings, right? Okay, what kind of gift did they get? I have to give back the same kind of gift. Oh, they didn't give back this kind of gift. I give that kind of gift. How could they jump in the circle before the siblings jump in the circle? You know, it's like people take this to such a place where it's just like, can you just be in the moment and enjoy the moment? You know, or maybe not enjoy the moment, to deal with the moment productively, let's say it like that, right? But the more you have, the more that you're in these places of the shoulds and the judgment of others as well as yourself, the more you're going to be in this place of resistance and not moving forward proactively. Tov, hope that makes sense. Next, we talked just now about decluttering and deep cleaning the mind. Brought back the wine and Hasidus mug, y'all. All right, anyway, for those who know, they know. The next one is time. Okay, can we deep clean our time? And this is a big one, my friends. That's right. Especially once you deep clean your mind, that's going to be a big, big help to deep clean your time. It's definitely going to save you a lot of time. But this is like, what's a great one that's time consuming and also actually probably bad for your mind as well, right? Let's see, we got politics, right? How many people are jumping from one political article to another? How many people are watching, right? We got the news, the 24-hour, news channels and all that stuff. I mean, that would affect your mind probably pretty badly. Okay, and obviously also there's the social media stuff, right? The social media stuff, which of course also plays around with our mind as well. But recognize also the amount of time. Calculate, I'll ask you all, calculate, I don't know if you can, calculate the amount of time you spend with the social media, with the news, with the politics, right? For many people, you're talking about hours a day, legit. Hours a day. Wild. So, I mean, I can't, like, imagine, let's say a person's awake from, I don't know, let's say they're awake from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., right? So what is that, 11, 4, what is that, 5? No, 7, yeah. So let's say a person's up for 16 hours. So if you're knocking off a few hours, that's a decent chunk of your day. Not to mention the amount that these ideas get into your brain, right? Like, let's talk about it a little bit, right? Especially social media stuff, right? We all know that, you go on social media. There's a reason they call it fake book, correct? Because what is it? We start looking around at the things that everyone else is doing, or at least they're not even necessarily that they're doing, but the 1 second when they're like, hey, then they go back to being their old self, with that. So it's right. It puts us in a mindset of negativity about our own life a lot of the time, right? For most of us, not everyone, for most of us. So all these things are time consuming and often therefore cluttering our time and cluttering our mind. What if all of that time, or let's not even say that, let's not say all of it, because it's good to be on these things to a certain extent. It's good to get out there, be connected, whatever. That's fine and good. I'm not against that at all. I do it myself, but to go on there, say what you want to say, do what you want to do, like real quick or whatever, and then get off. How about that? Like, for example, there's a famous writer, what's his name? Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, and he has a few other books as well. He says, don't get on the internet, don't check your email, check your email twice a day. I'm sure he says the same thing about social media as well. Twice a day. He says, I think 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. I forget the other time, right? There's no need to be on more than that, right? There's no need to be on more than that. So person, go on, do your thing, spend your 20 minutes or whatever you need, or maybe even an hour on things that are worthwhile. Business, he's talking about business, right? So to get on there for that amount for at certain times, he also says not to get on in the morning because it's bad for that you have your most creative energy in the morning, which actually Judaism also says a similar idea. There's more chesed in the morning. Those morning hours are more conducive to chesed, into having an expanded consciousness. So I think that's something to think about as well, right? Find a way to get off the phone for a certain amount of time. Turn off the phone. That's right, not silent. Turn off the phone. Imagine that. Imagine turning off the phone for an hour. Right? For many of us, right? Good time to do it for those Jews out there is when you're praying, right? That's an easy one. Turn it off when you're praying, right? That just let it be totally off, right? Or leave it in the house and then go out of the house, something along those lines. Not on silent, right? Because then it could still disturb you. Still think psychologically. There's even been studies that have shown this psychological change and shift between turning something on silent versus turning it off completely. So when we do that, wow, there's a certain liberation, there's a certain detachment, a certain freeing going on there, So anyway, this is one aspect of freeing from social media and freeing up time. Also, another way is another important thing, actually, is about doing first things first. I'm very big on that one. I don't know if I always succeed, but I'm very big on that one. Do first things first. If you can go ahead and prioritize that which needs to be prioritized and actually follow up on it, you usually feel a lot better about yourself. You usually feel much more accomplished. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big one. And it helps. All these things also end up being good for your mental health and the amount of energy you are storing and taking in versus what you are giving out and depleting yourself, you know? So that's one thing. Another thing having to do with time is get honest with yourself about the tasks that you do have. Get honest about taking longer than necessary when you are fulfilling those tasks, right? What's really going on there? How much time is really being wasted and being, bombarded with all sorts of different other things? And a lot of times that's the phone, right? But really, why does it take you, I'm not sure what the example would be, but why does it take you, let's say, to get from one place to another, X amount of time, 40 minutes, if it only is really a 20-minute walk, right? So what happened? You stopped somewhere, you looked at your phone, you did this, you did that, and then it ends up taking longer. All right, so think about that. Or you messed around with, playing other games or something like this on the phone, don't know what. But a lot of times, things are taking longer than they really need to take. It's inefficient, and it's getting in the way of us living out our life. Again, imagine we shut off the phone for a certain amount of time and actually worked on something that was our purpose, worked on something that was meaningful or made a difference, right? If we actually go ahead and build our own thing, right? Instead of becoming, start posting on social media about what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is saying, instead of actually doing something or creating something on your own, right? All right. Questions, by the way, on that, on the whole section of time and everything we just said? Questions, thoughts, ideas? All right, we got a comment here. For me, I'd like to do less and be present, but I could be doing whatever kicks in and I get lost in it all. Can you talk about being present there? Yeah, for sure. So it is kind of similar to what we said before, right? That aspect of being present is always, is always gonna really be the root of whatever the tikkun, whatever the fixing is, right? Because when we're able to be present, you're in the moment, and then, okay, what is the proactive thing to do in this moment? And that always means making a choice. So remember, if you want to win at something, win at life, win at whatever it might be. So fine, so take that moment and say, okay, what is the number one thing for me to do in that moment? And then allow yourself to go ahead and to do it freely because you already made that calculation. So let the other things go. And if it makes you feel better, fine, something comes to your mind, you just write it down so that you don't forget what you wanted to do. Okay, if that makes you feel better, you don't want to forget the thing. Fine, so write it down, put it on the side, and just remember the main point, which is like, okay, I am doing this thing now. Right? Look, in Judaism, we have this idea as well. There's something called koveya itim Torah, make set times for Torah learning. Why? Because Torah is the main thing. And even though life, often you get caught up with whatever it might be, making money or running errands, or certainly in Israel, going to government offices, happens all the time. So we get cut off in all these things, all these details, but like Koveya itim Torah, set times for Torah means, hold on a second, you don't get stuck in the means and lose sight of the ends. Make a time in your day for the ends, no matter what. So you could be 8 hours a day working on, the going to the job to make the money in order to support the home, right? But spend a certain amount of time just focusing on, okay, what is the point of the home? What is the point of my life? Spend time on that, right? So just like we have that with Torah, dare I say, right, that is the goal, the ultimate goal. On a smaller level, perhaps we can say the same thing about different other areas of our life, whether that be mental health, whether that be self-care, whether that be working on my particular project and the unique thing that I want to do that's my personal mission, right? So the same principle applies. Go ahead and make a time that I'm working on this thing now, and everything else I let I put off to I let it be for the moment. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Any other questions on this? All right, fine. Next level I wanted to speak about is relationships. Decluttering relationships. Here we go. All right, hold on a second. What about doing less? Like, how do you not feel guilty about this? It's very simple. When you feel that feeling of overwhelm, you have to write, I guess I'm not so simple. It takes some self-knowledge, okay? When you feel that feeling of overwhelm, like in the end, you're just gonna not be able to do anything. So you gotta put something down, right? Okay, so it's like, imagine a person who's in the gym and they try to lift weights, right? And they see that they've exerted themselves too much. So they realize, okay, I gotta take a step back. I can't, this amount is too much for me, right? So you take on 100 pounds or whatever. A person takes on 100 pounds and they realize, hold on a second, I can't do the amount of reps that I really want to do. So they have to put that down and use less weights or do less reps, right? Really, ideally, probably use less weights, do more reps. That's I think what they say. So I think we have to be very real, because again, the desire of the lower side of us is for the familiarity, is for the pattern, is for continuing that. So if we want to make a change, we have to stretch a little bit. We have to recognize that we have to take on 1 to 2 things at a time, perhaps 1 to 3 things at a time. But that's really it. And so I'd rather you make a permanent change in one area than no change in a lot of areas, right? And so, okay, which thing should that be? That depends on you. You have to feel what resonates for you at that particular time. So next level over is our relationships. We spoke about mind, we spoke about time. I want to talk about now deep cleaning relationships, right? That means, let's start, we have different types of relationships. We have toxic relationships, right? What does a toxic relationship mean? It means it can mean a lot of things. But for one thing, most people know what they feel a toxic relationship to be, right? Is there someone who is always bringing you down? Is there someone who's always negative? Is there someone who is a time waster for you? That's right. I know that sounds cruel, right? That sounds cruel, but that's there's ways of doing it. We're going to talk about in a second, how to do it in a way that's not as cruel. Let's say it like that. Okay. Right. You got energy vampires, right? Then there's also the people who are not attached to you, quite the opposite. You're attached to them, right? To be able to let go of people who you keep looking for their approval and hoping that they'll notice you, right? Can you hear the idea that all of this is taking away from your life? Everything I just said there is taking away from your life. And it's not just about, I'm going to extend myself and do a kindness because this person needs me, even though they're, that's not what I'm talking about. That's fine. You extended yourself. It's healthy. It's normal. Fine. If you're feeling resentful, if you're feeling like this person's a burden, if you're feeling that there's a part of you that's feeling like you don't have a choice, then there's something going on with you, right? Then there's a weakness in you. Now, if you're saying, look, there's a part of me that would love to get rid of them, but I totally could, but I feel like I want to do a chesed and be involved with this person. I want to do a kind deed and extend myself to be involved with that person. Okay, that's healthy. That's fine. But be honest with yourself. Are you afraid to step away for some reason and therefore you're kind of being a victim in the situation? Or are you really totally comfortable walking away and nevertheless extending yourself to helping this person out. And I'm talking about someone who's might be sapping your energy. I'm not talking about someone who's a toxic relationship situation. I'm not talking about someone who is always negative and nasty and whatever, right? Okay, and so also to let go of people who let go of that side of yourself, do the work within yourself, whatever that might be, not for now, in order to fill up the side of yourself that's yearning for approval from certain people, right? That would be the ideal way to fix this up. But also I want to share with you though, in order to, if you're wondering, okay, how do I deal with those relationships? How do I let those relationships go? Right. And by the way, another one is it could be just a relationship that you outgrew. That you start to notice that, hey, I'm making strides, I'm growing, I'm becoming a more successful, higher level version of myself. And then I go hang out with these people from the old days, and they're still talking about the same stuff. They're still talking about the same stuff. I'm just totally not there. Okay, so how do you do that? I don't want to be a jerk, right? So look, firstly, recognize that's part of life. And secondly, here's how to do it. And anyone who's involved in education, you do need to know this to a certain extent. Anyone who's involved with people, you do need to know this to a certain extent, because this can help you in life, especially if situations, especially nowadays, if you deal with a lot of people, you're going to come across some crazies, and you need to know how to disengage with people sometimes like that, because they could be a danger to your life. They could make claims, all sorts of negative claims on you and all sorts of stuff. And so you do have to know how to do that for those purposes, I'm sorry to say. And so one excellent way of doing it, I think, is what I like to call fizzle out the relationship. What do I mean by that? Person's in contact with you every day, let's say the person's in contact with you every day. Okay, so why do you have to respond to them within 2 hours, right? Start to respond to them less often, right? So instead of, if you've been up to now responding to them every 2-3 hours, start responding to them every 6 hours or 8 hours, right? Let that go on for a little bit, a couple of days, maybe a week. And then, okay, you respond to them. Then they write you, you respond to them the next day. Or they call you, you miss their call. Instead of calling them back 3 hours later, you call them back the following day, right? And you do that gradually, okay? Take your time with it. And you do it gradually. 6 weeks already, you can already be in a place where you're in touch once a week. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even quicker than that. Maybe once a month or whatever. You can fizzle out relationships that way and get them to a place where you'd like them to be. Now that, by the way, that's also might be for people who, again, they're not people who are dangerous to your life, but people who just, you're looking to, you just, the relationship is becoming something that's more like a burden on you. And it's something that you want to, you like the person, you want to, you do want to stay friends with the person, but it's something that's bringing you down in one way or another, whether that be bringing you down, whether it be, dulling your time, like your time can be better served elsewhere. And just, so it's, in many ways, it's wasting your time. I know it's harsh to say. It's like, oh, what kind of jerk? Be a nice guy, hang out with them. It's just like, okay, hang out with them sometimes, but the extent of where the relationship was not where you want to be, right? So you can do a similar thing. You can do a similar kind of thing with this as well, as I just said, right? And just get it to a place that you want it to be, whether it's every few days, whether it's, once a week, being in touch once a week, whatever it might be. Okay, so anyway, that's what I got to say about relationships off the top of my head. Questions, thoughts, ideas on the relationship aspect that we just said, and decluttering and deep cleaning in terms of our relationships. Questions, thoughts, ideas, anybody? And no, just in case you're wondering, anyone in here, I have not fizzled the relationship with you. If we've spoken less, it wasn't intentionally on my end, maybe on your end. All right. So hold on a second. Someone just chatted something. There you go. There you go. Okay, good for you, Lauren. I hope they're not on right now. Anyway, so yeah, you go for that. I'm telling you, it never fails. If you ever get confronted, you'd be like, no, I'm busy, whatever. You know, who knows? Whatever. You could finagle your way out of it if they confront you on it, or you can tell them the truth. You know, I don't know. You figure it out. Feel it out. All right, number 4. Decluttering and deep cleaning your computer. That's right, my friends. The advice is given by many to clear your browser, right? You know, you got all those different tabs open. Clear those suckers. Clear your email, which I know is an impossibility for me. I don't know what you got. How am I supposed to clear? Imagine I get that advice now. How much does it clear? You know, 80,000 emails, whatever. It's like impossible. Okay, fine. Anyway, no, don't clear it. You need a lot of times information, but I don't know. However you sort your email, you know. And this is a good one, though. Unsubscribe from lists. Not mine. The Ellie the Jew email, you want to stay in on that. The Lighthouse email, do never unsubscribe from those. But, you know, the less meaningful ones. The ones that you keep opening and deleting, or just deleting, right? Take the time, and, you know, you can make a policy. Okay, you know, every Sunday I'm going to unsubscribe, or every week I'm going to unsubscribe from 3 things. All right, you go ahead and unsubscribe, and all of a sudden, you know, within a couple of months, you're like down to something that you're more tolerable. All right, that's my ideas for the computer. If anyone else has other ideas, feel free to throw them up in the chat. This is the last minute addition to this little class. And last but not least, holy cow, it's already 9:20. All right, last but not least, actually cleaning up the home. Okay, but I'm not talking about cleaning the home for Pesach. You know, I'm talking about like what would make the home in general just be more functioning in a way that's you're not feeling clutter all the time. Obviously, number 1 is get rid of the clutter, but that's not what I'm talking about here. Think about the little things, right? So number 1 is clean up after yourself, right? Just clean up after yourself. If you go ahead and wash, you know, the few dishes that you use, for example, immediately when you use them, instead of throwing them in the sink, it really only takes a minute. You don't notice, but you start throwing things in the sink here, there, whatever, a few times. All of a sudden now, cleaning the dishes is a chore. Now it's something that you need to do. Now it's something that takes 20 minutes or 20, whatever it is, instead of going ahead and just doing one thing at a time. Not everyone agrees with me. Not everyone is into this one. I'm into this one big time, but not everyone is into this one. I understand that. There are other opinions on this matter. Just my personal thought. Another one is also just in general, small chores to do things here, to do just different spotted things. Take 12 minutes here or 12 minutes there. And if you do that, right, this is what I tell husbands when they come home after a day out, after a day at work or whatever it might be, take the first 10 minutes you walk in and just to be proactive in the house, do something. Firstly, it makes you into more of a giver, that you're supposed to enter the house looking to give. You're supposed to walk into the house feeling I'm on, as opposed to thinking I'm going to walk into the house and I'm off, I'm going to plop into my couch and everyone's going to serve me. That actually is in Jewish law, that you shouldn't be like that you should walk in feeling like walk on and walk in and bring energy into the house in a proactive way. Also, of course, it makes the wife feel, assuming that the wife is taking care of the home, it makes her feel like she's not alone and that she's not taken for granted and that you're part of the situation. I know the obvious man answer, which is, hold on a second, how much is she at work helping me with 10 minutes of work at work? Fine, okay, there's no answer to that. Just this is what works for many, many people, so just take it. Remove another. This is a big one for this is legit for decluttering. Remove things you're keeping in case you'll need it one day. You ever say that? Well, maybe I'm gonna need that thing one day. Man, you know how many of those things I've thrown out lately, and it's very liberating. So that's a big one as well. That's a big one as well, right? In case you need it one day. And so, yeah, sometimes that's going to bite you in the end because you will need it. But the vast majority of the time you won't. And to keep all that junk around because of the few pieces of junk that you're one day going to use or one day going to need, it's not a good trade-off. It's not a good trade-off for most people, certainly not in this house. It's not a good trade-off. So That's just something to think about. And so anyway, remember a phrase that I recently heard, which is clutter is born from postponed decisions. That's for cleaning. All right, think about that. Actually, it's really all these things. Clutter is born from postponed decisions. Meditate on that one for a while, friends. Clutter is born from postponed decisions. Am I going to need this thing? Am I not going to need it? Maybe I'll need it. Right? Do I want this person in my life? Do I not? I do want to get rid of them, but I'm not ready to. I'm afraid. It's all balking at the situation. I want to do something, but then I hold myself back. Right? So, anyway, I know I should be doing something different, but then right? I know I shouldn't be continue scrolling for the next 45 minutes, but and I keep meaning to get up, but I don't. It's all born. All of this stuff that stops us, it's all born from postponed decisions, from postponed action, postponed making decision one way or another and moving forward. Tov, so my friends, I hope this is helpful, and yeah, let me know. I mean, I don't, this is actually a new topic for me to speak about. I just really put this together recently, so let me know your thoughts. Ellie the Jew @gmail.com. My friends, have yourselves a wonderful day and wonderful week. Peace.